Thank you, Gavin, and hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today. Welcome, and thank you for joining me here on the traditional lands of the Jagera and Turrbal people. I wish to acknowledge elders past, present and emerging and pay my respects. And I wish to do the same to all First Nations people here in the room and watching online, as well as all people here in the room and watching online. That all came out wrong. I'd written it, and of course I'm trying to look at everybody, and anyway, you know where I'm coming from. I will explain first up, yes, this is about using a digital collection and creating an online experience. Part of my presentation, however, will be a bit about history, so it'll be a bit of a history lesson. And because there's so much content at State Library Queensland, there's quite a lot that'll be on the screen, and I'll be talking, and I'll also be covering my journey to find an overarching story to encompass everything. Okay. Good. Okay. My digital collections catalyst program, Minding the Dead, is about keeping memories alive, exploring a way to achieve this using readily available and accessible interactive digital technologies and inspiring others to want to do the same. The State Library Foundation, State Library Queensland staff, past and present fans and residents of Ravenswood, of whom there are many, the Ravenswood Restoration and Preservation Association, the town businesses, Thorpe's Building and Tea Rooms, Railway Hotel, Imperial Hotel and the Post Office, Ravenswood Gold, Charters Towers Regional Council, the National Trust of Queensland and the Eddie Koiki Mabo Library at the James Cook University of Townsville have all assisted my journey, and I sincerely thank you all for this. I also wish to thank my crew, and this is a plug for the creative industries. If you want to get something done, get creatives to do it. There are plenty of Queensland creatives, and they just jump in. I could not have had a more supportive, enthusiastic team of collaborators than Steve Stubbs, who not only shot interviews, recorded sound, assembled and cut content, he drove. Cole Forfan Fang, an up-and-coming composer, singer, musician and filmmaker who jumped in and coded my prototype so I could show something to you today. John Coggle, who taught me how to shoot my own interviews when my funds ran low. Peter Couples, who reworked lyrics, arranged the music and lent his voice to the reversioning of the old Palmer song into a song about the Ravenswood Gold Rush. Douglas Hackett, who helped curate content, and John Bannis, who has provided creative guidance and moral support. And to you, Queenslanders, for being who you are, a determined, inspiring people. Minding the Dead will be an interactive documentary that explores stories and the history of Ravenswood, a town which was, for a short period of time during the late 19th and early 20th century, North Queensland's largest inland town. Some documents suggest that during its gold rush peak, Ravenswood had a population of between 3,000 and 5,000 people. Others, like this article by James Murray in Walkabout, say 40,000. They may have been referring to the whole district. There was a gold rush on. But then again, Ravenswood was a bustling metropolis in its time. Whether you consider the best part of 40 years to be a brief period or not, Ravenswood was once a prosperous gold mining centre. The writer of an 1888 article in the Ravenswood Mining Journal, which you'll be able to see if you go to the White Gloves room after, and there's plenty of things in the White Gloves room, believe me, envisaged a large town of many villas in well-kept gardens are to be seen built in styles of architecture which by their diversity give relief to the eye. He then goes on to talk about a canal with women with, gold encircled waists or something, walking down and music playing and lots of tables and chairs. It's really a lovely dream. But it was a dream that was never realised. Still, Ravenswood sustained more than 40 licensed pubs, multiple banks, schools, churches and a courthouse until the Mundic ore defied the extraction technologies of the time and the gold became too difficult and expensive to mine. That means that there were lots of sulfates and oxides that were connected to, attached to what really was like a gold flake, and they couldn't get it out because everybody's mine had a different, required a sort of a different extraction technique. Ray Hollyoak, the Ravenswood historian, told me that this was when the town's buildings became its chief export. Can you imagine that? Seeing the best part of your town relocate. Its houses, hotels, banks, the Masonic Hall, and other buildings shipped out on bullock trains and carts, some intact, others dismantled, to be repurposed in not just one town, but town centres across Queensland. One example was the new Ravenswood Hotel, which was moved to Winton. It's a story and a study in its own right, and one that I hope to capture, at least in part, in my online project. Now, I might mention here that all the black and white photos are in the State Library of Queensland collection. Now, my project, which once completed, will be housed on the website of State Library Queensland. The fact that Ravenswood's story didn't end with the town leaving and that it continued to function despite its population dropping to as low as 20 on one occasion is what inspires me about Ravenswood and its people. This film, Ravenswood, A Ghost Town with Glamour, is held at the National Film and Sound Archive, but unfortunately it's not available for public viewing, so I can't show it to you today. I can, however, describe it. It features Coralie Weinheimer, a young Ravenswood woman going about many different jobs in what's described as a small, deserted Queensland mining town. It has a classic 1950s opening soundtrack, an orchestral roar of wind with a sort of lost in space boing. Coralie Weinheimer walks down a deserted Macrossan street. Dust blows behind her as she enters what I know to be the Imperial Hotel, but when we see Coralie, she's serving customers in the post office general store. She's trimming a man's hair, running the telephone switchboard, pinning up notices for tax returns, pumping petrol, and driving the post office truck to nearby Totley Silver Mine to deliver mail to miners. There were only two that she's delivering them to, by the way. When at home and on her days off, she does the accounts, assists with first aid classes, writes to her pen friends, and teaches Sunday school. The film ends with the narrator saying she's an amazing girl who brings glamour to a ghost town. Sounds pretty busy to me. Interestingly, Coralie also featured in a 1949 Women's Day magazine, which you can check out if you pop into Thorpe's Building Tea Room in Ravenswood. The article probably inspired the film, but there are photographs of Coralie in the State Library of Queensland collection, the ones that appear in the magazine article. So that's the 40s and 50s. In the late 60s and subsequent 70s, Ravenswood became recognised as having historic relevance. It was North Queensland's largest inland town, as I've said, and we'll hear in a vox pop later, the birthplace of Charters Towers. Charters Towers was otherwise known as the World. It was Australia's first stock market. So if Charters Towers was the world and Ravenswood was the birthplace, it suggests that Ravenswood was quite possibly the Big Bang. Anyway, heritage became a big thing during the 70s under Whitlam and Fraser, and reports were written to guide heritage policy. One report by Peter Bell mentions that the best way to preserve buildings is to use them, to maintain them. Luckily, Ravenswood is home to a community intent on preserving its remaining historic buildings and providing information and assistance to people visiting the town. The Courthouse Museum is key to this. They not only provide information to people who come to town looking to find their ancestors and talk about the town itself, they look after the cemetery. Unfortunately, the Chinese graves, only one headstone remains, and there's only part of it. Now, this is the cemetery today. I'd quite like this photograph because it's got a crow or a raven on the headstone. But that's the mine in the background there. Because as of now, as of 2020, the Mundic ore problem has finally been solved and Ravenswood is home to Queensland's largest gold mine. Which begs the question, will Ravenswood once again become a successful metropolis? Could it? It happened in the 1900s, early 1900s. Could it happen in 2020? 2025, 2030, the mine will be there for a while. It's a difficult balance, community, government and enterprise, but it's another reason why I think Ravenswood is worth an interactive documentary. Now, an interactive documentary is a platform, or container if you like, that houses content made relevant by an overarching narrative. A compelling story that motivates people to want to explore the many facets of the whole, but allows them to do it in their own time. It's not like this, where it's just running ahead. But there's the rub. What does a story like that look and sound like that? Sound like? Any ideas? If you have some, please tell me. Would an assemblage of photos, newspaper and magazine cuttings, snippets of facts and figures, and a bunch of anecdotes tell you about the heart of this community? I wasn't sure, and I liked the idea of building a story around content, so I put it to the test. The slideshow that you're watching is being played in chronological order, and it paints a pretty cool picture. Now, there are 211 slides so far. You've seen half. But if you were just watching the slides, chances after a while you'd tune out. I did, especially after I'd sorted through the photos of mines and added them in. The story suddenly felt like it was no longer about the town and its people, and it felt less engaging to me. Possibly because the mines lacked context beyond the history of them. So I created a point-and-click experience that was purely based on a map. A cadastral map informed by a document that Mark T. Gordon wrote back in the 70s and is held in Excelsior Library in Charters Towers. But the experience didn't feel right. It'd be more meaningful if you were actually, like as a 3D tool. The idea was to have recreate the buildings in some way. But I thought that it would be more meaningful if you're actually in Ravenswood while you were experiencing it with a VR headset or something. Can you imagine walking down the street and seeing the buildings around you and then taking off the headset and going, oh my God, They are so beautiful. So, thinking that a story that links everything together would be a different but better way to go, I created this base level prototype. However, I asked a lot of questions. I had a lot of knowledge. I knew the knowledge, but when I put my player hat on, I found it irritating that I was forced to make uninformed decisions without knowing why I was making them. So it occurred to me that I needed a more dynamic interface, one that presents the more factual elements in an interesting way, bound together by an overarching narrative, something that would drive the player to want to continue. Now, if anybody's read my blogs, I talk about digging away the layers, but in this case, we shot some test footage on a GoPro while driving into Ravenswood. And one of the young gentlemen who live in Ravenswood very kindly gave me some audio. It has me wondering about the potential for gathering user-generated content.
I lived in Ravenswood from 2020 to 2022, and I completed year 4, 5 and 6 at Ravenswood State School.
Now, I want you to pay attention to this turn-off.
My mum, Jacqueline Palmer, and father, Ray Palmer, own the Thorpes building, which is a heritage-listed building that was built around 1904. Mum currently operates this building as a cafe from Wednesday to Sunday downstairs and an Airbnb upstairs. I moved to Ravenswood in 2020, but my family have had a connection to Ravenswood for many years. My grandparents, Hubert and Elizabeth Foote, have owned a miner's cottage in Ravenswood for almost 50 years and would often bring my mother and her 3 siblings out for weekends and school holidays.
It's Ravenswood in the background there. You could see like a hill.
And then me. When I moved to Ravenswood in 2020, I can just remember being amazed by the warm and welcoming community, and coming from a larger primary school with close to 1,000 students to Ravenswood with a total of about 21 at the time, I was surprised by the level of attention that each student received due to the school's small size. The school and town's smaller size meant that all students lived nearby and most were within walking distance from each other. This meant that a lot of afternoons were spent wandering around the town, exploring the creeks, ghost hunting or playing hide and seek. I'm sure that lots of my other friends from Ravenswood would agree that this was a lot of fun. I am currently a Year 9 student in Townsville, but I still spend most weekends in Ravenswood, either helping in a cafe or catching up with friends. I feel super grateful for the tight-knit nature of the Ravenswood community, as it has allowed me to build friendships and maintain them even in spite of the fact that I spend the majority of my time in Townsville. I really enjoyed my time at Ravenswood State School, and I continue to enjoy the time I spend in Ravenswood now. I really hope that many others can have the great experience I had living in Ravenswood.
So this is Thorpe's building here. They're on an Airbnb, by the way. It's very nice. So the turn-off that we just had, literally, to go into Thorpe's building there, that was the road that went up to the school and the cemetery. The turn-off that I pointed out in the video, I think we were driving at about 40 kilometres an hour, is the new turn-off to the cemetery, so it's a little bit out. But wouldn't it be, like Ravenswood may have a small population, but it's got a great big heart. People visit from all over the place for the town's community events. The annual Halloween ball is run by the P&C. It's a huge turnout for a small school. There's lots of characters there. Wouldn't it be great, though, if the town took off again, in terms of, like it's a small school. It'd be great to have all these people come to help raise money for it. And as I said, there are some great characters who know about Ravenswood.
They all come across from Ravenswood to Charters Towers. The birthplace of Charters Towers really is undoubtedly Ravenswood.
My great-grandfather came here originally from the Californian goldfields. He had come from Cornwall, at Land's End in Cornwall, and then he ended up here on the goldfields in Ravenswood. My grandfather, he had his own mine. The Onnazal it was called. He was also mayor of the town at one stage. My father, he prospected for gold. He was in the army, and when he came home there wasn't much work, so he dug wells and built windmills and various other things that were around.
I only ever remember Ravenswood with joy and pleasure, and me singing as a little child in a blue dress, singing Sweet Alice Blue Gown. And I can remember going in a parade in the street with all the children did, and I wore this Sweet Alice Blue Gown dress in the parade, and it was just such a happy life for children up there. They were so kind to us, and it was the happiest childhood memory I have in my life, Ravenswood.
I remember just like yesterday, the road wasn't bitumen then. It was hard as bitumen, like very hard from, the wheels of drays and all that going up and down there. And but yeah, one day it was good rain, and it was good rain too. And next thing I was out the front of my place there, and you could see all these fish. They hit the old dirt road there, bounce about that high, and then they'd get washed down into the gutter and down into the creek.
We became very involved in the community. We were the ones who did the pool up there. We decided, Jean Kennedy was very involved in that, and we decided to sell a brick. Any people who would like to buy a brick, and that gave us funding. And then Jim Rebgetz, who was on the Shire, we got the land from the council, and he dug the hole.
With a bulldozer.
With a bulldozer, dug the hole.
On the committee, we used to have weekends for special weekends up there, and we'd have sports days and like trivia at night, and the next day we'd have a church service, and then we'd have more sport activities. But by 2004, the volunteers became short. The mines have decided, instead of having houses for miners to live there, that the miners had to live in the camps and the families came away. So we were short of staff, we were getting older, and so a suggestion came up that we had a pioneer luncheon instead for the oldies.
One of my roles at Carpentaria Gold was to work on the Ravenswood expansion plan, which was the reopening of the Buck Reef West pit and the Sarsfield pit. As part of that, we were going to build a bund wall across an area. Now, we'd heard rumours and there'd been some evidence in early newspapers that there was an original cemetery in the area where we wanted to put the bund wall. So we decided we should investigate and see what was there.
The lucky and sixth licensee of the Railway Hotel in Ravenswood. I bought the hotel in July 2017, and I was passing through town and come across this beautiful architectural feature and fell in love with it instantly. I was driving past the Railway Hotel quite slowly, and there was a crowd drinking on the footpath, and they were cheering and carrying on silly when they saw my pickup truck. It's a little different. So I pulled over. The publican ran out and asked, could he take photographs of my truck? And I said, yeah, no problem. And then he said that when he sells his pub, he wants to buy a truck the same as mine. And that prompted the question, how much do you want for your hotel? And 35 minutes later, we owned the property. So it was quite a quick decision.
The first night that I stayed at the pub, I have a dream. I sit on the ground floor, like the dirt floor, and the guy and the wife sit on the rocking chair. He have a round table at the middle, so the wife sit one side, the husband sit one side, and then they ask me the question. But the wife not talk to me. The husband so mean, he face not smile. He look at me, he asked me the question, why I come here. And I have to sit on the dirt floor, and in the background is like dust and smoke, and then I can see the children run, chase each other. And what I saw is the young girl wear the white dress. She chasing someone, is the kid the same, so they chasing beside me. And the wife not say anything. They sit, they like have a coffee or cup of tea or something, and the husband say, why you come here? What for? It's like, I have no idea. It's like, oh, I come here because my husband, he come here, he buy the pub. So what he tell me, he gonna fix the pub up, make they clean, nice, take care of the pub, and we live here. And I just come here, follow my husband. And then he look at me, he say, if you good, you can stay here. If you're not good, you cannot stay here. And the dream, that's it. So after like probably a week, 2 weeks later on, my husband showed me one of the picture. And I say, oh my God, that is the guy that I saw in the dream. And that is the wife, exactly the same. Got the table in the middle, the wife, husband, and rocking chair. That's quite make me feel scared a little bit when I live in there. But I quite enjoy it.
Richney tells a pretty good ghost story, and she has more. The ghosts are why a lot of people go there. But there's more to it than that. There's something about the town that gets you, almost viscerally. The buildings and the environment generate an emotional feeling that's both nostalgic and full of wonder. I asked all my interviewees to sum it up, and a lot of people said that it's like a time capsule. But I think Hannah sums it up well.
I think there's just something poignant about it, especially with how many buildings were removed. and you've left with all these staircases to nowhere, like where an old hotel used to be, or an old church, or like there's all these little marks in the landscape that are, there's nothing, there's no longer anything there, but there's just these little reminders of what used to be.
But today's community is still there, and they are a very relevant and current connection to the past and the future, as well as the present. Louis Palmer is the young man in the top right quadrant. Now, he contributed to this project because I asked him to, and if there's one thing that the process of filmmaking, and this process in particular, has taught me, it's that there's no harm in asking. And if there's one thing, well, sorry, no, I said that already. And this mosaic of interviewees speaks for itself. 20 interviews with some very generous, sincere and passionate people with wonderful memories and wonderful stories about Ravenswood. So the upshot of my early experiments into creating a story around content alone and the interview process was the realisation that the adage, story first, was coined for a reason. Now, I teach storytelling, so I mean, I know that in theory, but in practice now, I can definitely guarantee that story should come first. Story first, then content, whilst devising an effective platform within which to house everything. And collaboration, which brought me and my incredibly talented team to this. Now, this is a slightly earlier version of the interactive that I wanted to show you, but we'd done a screen recording, so and I'm not able to actually interact with the interaction just because I'm a Mac person and this is not a Mac. So forgive me for this. This is a map from 1979 that we've used here, a tourist map.
Free, my boys, the winds are fair and free. The steamer's course is north, my boys, to the Bowen we will see.
These are the stories that people told me.
See, my boys, at the creek's muddy shores, where I've been told there's lots of gold.
Oh, and some of them are online.
South no more. Oh, blow ye wind, hey-oh, a diggers we will go. I'll stay no more down south, my boys, so let the music play. In spite of what I'm told, I'm off in search of gold, and make a push for that new rush 1,000 miles away. I hear the lands are troublesome, will test both horse and man. The rivers are all wide and deep, no bridges them to span. No bridges them to span, my boys, and so you'll have to swim, but never fear.
Thank you so much for coming to my house and talking about my other house in Ravenswood, my home for nearly 30 years. They were happy times. And, Jim Delaney built that hotel, so we were the second owners, and it was a lovely hotel, and a lot to do with the roof. The first cyclone that we had the roof just leaked and leaked, and we had buckets all over the lounge, up the stairs to the top accommodation, and it was quite a venture, that one. But anyway, the storm cyclone finished, and we tidied up all the hotel and got it back to square one, and then I applied for a grant then and ended up getting the grant, and a new roof was put on the hotel, which was really great. No more water in there, it was perfect. We've fond memories, a lot of mining.
So I'll just pause there for a minute. The process of this, when I said about collaboration before, is really interesting and really important because, as I said, Cole did the coding for this, and it's without the feedback from other people, and even feedback from, like people in the community, and just making sure that people are happy with what you've put on screen. It's important, it's important to get that, to make sure that everybody is comfortable. So, it's a story about community, and that's what came to the fore through all of this process. And that's the prototype. So, all we need now is to further develop it and finish it, which will take a while. It will require more funding. For a programmer, the programming and the testing and the tweaking, some sound effects, music, and a little more filming, and more editing, but Minding the Dead is well on its way, and this journey would not have been possible without the support of State Library Queensland's Digital Collections Catalyst grant, as well as the people and businesses of Ravenswood, all the businesses, who have allowed me to record their stories and record footage in their properties for posterity, for State Library Queensland and the Australian public. And to take us out.
My sweet little Alice blue gown, when I first wandered down into town, I was both proud and shy, as I felt every eye, and in every shop window I'd been passing by, and in manner of fashion I'd sigh, and the world seemed to whisper goodbye, till it wilted, I wore it, I'll always adore it, my sweet little Alice blue gown.
What a beautiful song. Thank you.